tiny alien girl terrified humans would eat her, but the outcome was shockingly different. Marcus Reed wiped sweat from his brow as he trekked through the dense foliage of planet Lumina. The research station had sent him to collect samples from the bioluminescent forest, but he hadn't expected the humidity to be quite so oppressive. His environment suit regulated his temperature, but his face remained exposed to the planet's tropical climate. Just a few more specimens, he muttered to himself, carefully placing a glowing leaf into his collection case. The forest around him pulsed with light in blues and purples, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that still took his breath away despite weeks on this assignment. A soft sound caught his attention, something between a gasp and a squeak. Marcus froze, his military training from before he became a xenobiologist kicking in. He scanned the area slowly, his hand instinctively moving to the pulse pistol at his hip. The sound came again, from a patch of luminous moss near his feet. Kneeling down, Marcus carefully parted the vegetation and found himself staring at the most extraordinary sight of his career. A tiny humanoid figure, no more than 6 inches tall, lay tangled in the roots of a glowing plant. Her skin was a soft azure blue with delicate patterns that seemed to shimmer, and her hair flowed like liquid silver around a face that was undeniably sentient and intelligent. She wore what appeared to be clothing made from some kind of crystalline material that caught and amplified the forest's natural light. "Well, hello there," Marcus said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. The tiny being's eyes, large and luminous, with pupils like spiral galaxies, widened in terror. She scrambled backwards, pressing herself against the moss. "Please," she cried out in perfect English, shocking Marcus even further. "Don't eat me. I know I'm small and probably seem like a snack to you giants, but I taste terrible. Really awful. All bones and bitterness." Despite the seriousness of the situation, Marcus couldn't help but chuckle. "Eat you? I'm not going to eat you. I'm a scientist, not a monster." The tiny being paused her panicked movements, studying him with suspicious eyes. "You're not going to devour me. But all our stories say that the giant aliens consume smaller species. It's why we've stayed hidden for generations. I promise I have no intention of eating anyone, especially not someone who can talk," Marcus assured her, slowly sitting back on his heels to appear less threatening. "My name is Marcus Reed. I'm a human from planet Earth. And you are?" "Vila," she replied cautiously, still pressed against the moss. "I'm a Lumini. We're native to this world." Marcus nodded, trying to contain his excitement. This was potentially the scientific discovery of the century. The preliminary surveys of Lumina had found no signs of sentient life. Clearly, they hadn't been looking closely enough. "You're hurt," he observed, noticing how she favored one leg. "What happened?" Vila hesitated before answering. "I was gathering light crystals for our healing chambers when I was chased by a shade hunter. I fell from a high branch trying to escape." "May I help?" Marcus offered, slowly extending his hand palm up. "I have medical training." The tiny alien's eyes narrowed. "How do I know this isn't a trick to grab me?" "You don't," Marcus admitted. "But I give you my word as a scientist and explorer that I mean you no harm. If I wanted to capture you, I could have done so already." This logic seemed to persuade her. After a moment's consideration, Vila hobbled forward onto his palm. She was incredibly light, weighing no more than a small bird. Up close, Marcus could see the intricate patterns on her skin were actually tiny bioluminescent markings, and her clothing was indeed made from some kind of crystalline material he'd never encountered before. "Your hand is warm," she commented, sounding surprised. "Our legend said giants would be cold-blooded. Humans are warm-blooded," Marcus explained, carefully raising his hand to eye level so they could speak more easily. "And we don't eat intelligent beings. Actually, meeting you is incredibly exciting for me. We had no idea intelligent life existed on Lumina." "We prefer it that way," Vila said pointedly. "My people have watched your kind establish that settlement in the valley. The giant machines, the bright lights that disrupt our forest's natural patterns. She frowned. We feared it was only a matter of time before you discovered us. The research station. Marcus nodded. We're just scientists studying the unique ecosystem here. Had we known about your people, we would have approached differently. Vila studied his face intently. You have kind eyes for a giant. Perhaps our elders are wrong about your species. Marcus smiled. Perhaps we can learn from each other. I'd be honored to know more about your people. First, Vila said, wincing as she shifted position, could you help with my injury? Then perhaps I could show you a small part of our world. But you must promise to keep our existence secret from the other giants. I promise, Marcus said solemnly, though he knew this promise might be difficult to keep long-term. The discovery of an intelligent species would eventually need to be reported. But for now, gaining Vila's trust was more important. As he carefully examined her injured leg, Marcus couldn't help but think that this chance encounter might change everything, not just for his research mission, but for human understanding of alien intelligence. The tiny being in his palm represented a bridge between two worlds that neither had known existed alongside the other. Your people, he asked carefully, have they always hidden from outsiders? Always, Vila confirmed. It's how we've survived. But perhaps, she looked up at him with those spiral galaxy eyes. Perhaps it's time for that to change. 3 days after their first meeting, Marcus followed Vila through a section of the forest he'd never explored. She rode comfortably on his shoulder now, her initial fear replaced by cautious friendship. He'd successfully treated her injury with a small application of his medical kit's healing gel, earning her trust. Turn here, she directed, pointing to a nearly invisible path between two massive glowing fungi, and duck your head. The crystal formations hang low. Marcus obeyed, marveling at how Vila's people had hidden an entire civilization within the luminescent forest. As they passed through what appeared to be a solid rock wall, actually a clever holographic disguise generated by crystal technology, he entered a world beyond imagination. A vast cavern opened before them, illuminated by thousands of crystal formations that pulsed with inner light. Tiny structures were built into the walls and ceiling, connected by bridges of light that seemed solid yet translucent. Hundreds of lumini moved about their daily lives, some flying on what looked like crystal-powered wings, others operating machinery too small for Marcus to properly discern. This is incredible, he breathed, causing several nearby lumini to scatter in alarm at the sound of his voice. They'll get used to you, Vila assured him, though she sounded less certain than her words suggested. You're the first outsider to ever see Crystal Haven. A delegation of lumini approached, floating on platforms of light. They were clearly elders, their azure skin marked with more elaborate patterns, and their silver hair adorned with crystal ornaments. Vila, one of them spoke, his voice carrying remarkable authority for his size. You have brought an outsider to our sanctuary. This violates our most sacred law. Elder Thrym, Vila addressed him respectfully but firmly. Marcus saved my life. More importantly, he represents an opportunity. The surface predators grow bolder each cycle. The shadow stalkers attacked 3 harvesting parties last month alone. Marcus remained perfectly still, aware that any sudden movement might trigger panic. He'd learned from Vila that her people possessed remarkable technology based on crystal manipulation, but lacked physical strength due to their size. The outsiders bring their own dangers, another elder argued. Their machines disrupt the forest's energy flows. If I may, Marcus said softly, causing the elders to flinch despite his gentle tone. My people don't know you exist. Our research here is focused on the planet's unique ecosystem. If we'd known about your civilization, we would have approached it differently. The elders conferred among themselves in their native language, a melodic series of tones too complex for Marcus to follow. Finally, Elder Thrym addressed him directly. Vila claims you possess knowledge that might help us against the shadow stalkers. These predators grow more aggressive as your people's machines disturb the forest balance. They threaten our harvesting parties and have even breached our outer defenses twice in recent cycles. Marcus nodded carefully. I have military training from before I became a scientist. If these predators are physical beings, I might be able to help defend against them. A ripple of conversation spread through the gathering crowd of Lumini. Some appeared hopeful, others skeptical. Show him the sanctuary breach, Vila suggested to the elders. Let him see what we're facing. Elder Thrym reluctantly agreed, and soon Marcus found himself examining claw marks torn through what Vila described as phase crystal barriers, supposedly impenetrable energy fields generated by their technology. These shadow stalkers, Marcus said, examining the damage. What exactly are they? They're not native to Lumina, Elder Thrym explained. They arrived after a meteor shower several cycles ago. They feed on both organic matter and crystal energy. Our people provide both. Marcus frowned. Predators that consume energy. That's not something I've encountered before. They hunt primarily through sensing energy patterns, Vila added. Our bodies naturally produce crystal energy. It's how we manipulate our technology. We can mask our signatures temporarily, but not indefinitely. An idea formed in Marcus's mind. If they hunt by sensing energy, perhaps we can use that against them. Create decoys, traps. For the first time, he saw genuine hope in Elder Thrym's eyes. You would help us fight these creatures. I would, Marcus confirmed. But I need to understand your crystal technology better. How it works, how the shadow stalkers detect it. Vila brightened. I can teach you. I'm an energy manipulator, what your people might call an engineer. The next several days passed in a blur of learning and preparation. Marcus divided his time between his official duties at the research station and secret visits to Crystal Haven. Vila proved an excellent teacher, helping him understand the basics of crystal energy manipulation. Focus your intention through the crystal, she instructed, perched on his wrist as he held a small formation. The energy responds to conscious direction. To everyone's surprise, especially the skeptical elders, Marcus demonstrated an unusual aptitude for crystal manipulation. Vila theorized it had something to do with the electrical impulses in the human nervous system resonating with the crystal frequencies. As Marcus learned more about Lumini culture, he grew increasingly impressed by their achievements. Despite their tiny size, they had developed technologies that humans had never imagined, all based on the unique crystal properties of their world. Tomorrow we'll test the shadow traps, Vila told him one evening as he prepared to return to the research station. The scouts report increased shadow stalker activity near the eastern crystal groves. I'll be ready, Marcus promised, carefully placing her on a crystal formation near the hidden entrance. And Vila, thank you for trusting me. She smiled, her spiral galaxy eyes reflecting the ambient light. Thank you for showing me that not all giants are monsters from children's tales. As Marcus made his way back through the darkening forest, he realized how much had changed in just a few days. He had discovered an entirely new civilization and formed a friendship that crossed the boundaries of size and species. But more importantly, he had found a purpose beyond simple scientific research. The shadow stalkers were coming, and he was now the unlikely guardian of a hidden world of tiny beings who had never needed a champion before. The attack came sooner than expected. Marcus was demonstrating a modified energy disruptor to the Lumini Defense Council when the alarms echoed through Crystal Haven, a harmonized crystal tone that resonated through the entire cavern. Eastern Perimeter Breach, a scout announced, flying into the chamber on crystal wings. At least 7 shadow stalkers, larger than any we've encountered. Elder Thrym turned to Marcus. It seems we'll be testing your theories sooner than planned. Marcus nodded grimly. Vila, are the energy traps in position? Yes, but only in the main corridors, she replied, her usually melodious voice tense. We hadn't finished the outer defense grid. It will have to be enough, Marcus said, retrieving his pulse pistol. He'd modified it with crystal technology to disrupt the energy patterns of the shadow stalkers based on Vila's specifications. I'll take point at the main entrance. Your defense teams should focus on evacuation and secondary containment." The Lumini Council members exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with taking orders from an outsider, but the urgency of the situation overrode their hesitation. "Proceed as suggested," Elder Thrym commanded. "Activate the sanctuary protocols." Crystal Haven transformed around them. Bridges of light reconfigured, creating new evacuation routes as homes and communal spaces sealed themselves with energy barriers. The Lumini moved with practiced efficiency, their emergency procedures clearly well rehearsed. Vila insisted on accompanying Marcus to the front line. "I'm the best energy manipulator we have," she argued when he suggested she help with the evacuation. "You'll need me to recalibrate the traps as the stalkers adapt." As they reached the eastern entrance, Marcus got his first look at a shadow stalker. The creature defied easy description, a shifting mass of dark energy with physical form that seemed to both absorb and refract light. Multiple limbs extended and retracted from its core, ending in crystalline claws that sheared through the energy barriers protecting Crystal Haven's entrance. "They've evolved," Vila whispered from her position on Marcus's shoulder. "They're incorporating our crystal technology into their physical structure." Marcus raised his modified pistol. "Let's see how they handle this." The weapon discharged a pulse of energy that Vila had helped him calibrate to disrupt the shadow stalker's energy patterns. The creature struck by the blast shuddered, its form destabilizing momentarily before it retreated several paces. "It worked," Vila exclaimed. "Temporarily," Marcus cautioned, watching the creature reconstitute itself. "We need to lead them to the main trap corridor." What followed was a desperate fighting retreat through Crystal Haven's outer chambers. Marcus fired precisely, driving the shadow stalkers along the path they'd prepared, while Vila manipulated the crystal formations from his shoulder, creating barriers to channel the creatures. 3 stalkers fell to the prepared traps, their energy forms destabilized beyond recovery. But the remaining 4 demonstrated alarming adaptability, adjusting their frequency to avoid the worst effects of Marcus's weapon. "They're learning," Vila warned as they fell back to the final defensive position, a large chamber where they'd concentrated their most powerful crystals. "The weapon won't work much longer." Marcus knew she was right. Already his shots were having diminishing returns. "We need something more powerful. Can you channel the energy from multiple crystals simultaneously?" Vila's eyes widened. "That's incredibly dangerous. No single Lumini could control that much power." "What about a Lumini and a human together?" Marcus suggested. "You said our nervous systems resonate differently with the crystals." Before she could respond, the largest shadow stalker burst through the final barrier, its dark mass filling the entrance to the chamber. Behind it, the other 3 converged, their crystalline appendages clicking against the stone floor. "No choice now," Vila said grimly. "Place your hand on the master crystal. I'll guide the energy flow." Marcus pressed his palm against the massive crystal formation at the center of the chamber. Vila positioned herself on the back of his hand, her tiny form beginning to glow with concentrated energy. The sensation began as warmth, then intensified to something like electricity flowing through his nervous system. Marcus gasped as his perception expanded. Suddenly he could feel the crystal network throughout Crystal Haven, could sense the dark void-like presence of the shadow stalkers as they advanced. "Focus," Vila's voice seemed to come from inside his mind. "Direct the energy through visualization. See the shadow stalkers' energy patterns and disrupt them." Marcus concentrated, imagining the energy flowing from the crystal network through his body, amplified and focused like a lens. With Vila guiding the flow, they directed a massive surge toward the advancing predators. Light erupted from every crystal in the chamber, converging into a blinding beam that engulfed the shadow stalkers. The creatures writhed, their forms destabilizing under the concentrated energy assault. Then something unexpected happened. The master crystal pulsed with a frequency Marcus hadn't encountered before, and the chamber around them seemed to shift dimensions. Vila's form on the back of his hand began to glow with increasing intensity. "Marcus!" she cried out, her voice changing, deepening. "Something's happening." Before his astonished eyes, Vila began to grow. Her tiny form expanded rapidly, the crystal energy surrounding her in a cocoon of light. When the transformation completed mere seconds later, she stood beside him, human-sized, her azure skin and silver hair maintained but scaled proportionally. The shadow stalkers recoiled from this new development, their energy patterns disrupted by the transformation. Vila looked down at her newly sized body in amazement, then at Marcus. The ancient texts spoke of this, she gasped, her voice now at a normal human volume. The resonance transformation, it was thought to be legend. There was no time to process this miracle. Working together at equal size, Marcus and Vila channeled a final surge of energy through the crystal network. The combined power of human determination and Lumini crystal manipulation created a shockwave that rippled through the chamber. When the light faded, the shadow stalkers had been completely disintegrated, leaving only scattered crystalline fragments where they had stood. Vila stared at her hands, still glowing faintly with residual energy. "I don't understand. This shouldn't be possible." "The bigger question," Marcus said, supporting her as she wobbled slightly, unaccustomed to her new height, "is whether it's permanent." As if in answer, her form flickered briefly, shrinking slightly before stabilizing again. "It's unstable," she realized. "The transformation requires constant energy to maintain." Elder Thrym and the other Lumini appeared at the chamber entrance, staring in astonishment at the transformed Vila. "The resonance prophecy," Elder Thrym whispered, "when two worlds become one." The celebration in Crystal Haven lasted well into what passed for night on Lumina. The Shadow Stalker threat had been eliminated, at least temporarily, and the phenomenon of Vila's transformation became the central topic of excited discussion among the Lumini. Marcus stood somewhat awkwardly at the edge of the gathering, too large to comfortably join the festivities in the Lumini-sized spaces. Vila, fluctuating between her natural size and her transformed human scale form as the crystal energy ebbed and flowed, moved between both worlds with increasing confidence. "The elders have been consulting the ancient records," she told Marcus, currently at human size as she joined him in his corner. "The resonance transformation has occurred only twice before in our history, both times when a Lumini formed a profound connection with another species." "Connection?" Marcus questioned, watching as her form flickered briefly before stabilizing again. "The crystal energy responds to emotional resonance as much as conscious manipulation," she explained. "Our bond, our friendship, created the conditions for the transformation." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "But it's not stable." "Not yet," Vila agreed. "The records suggest a stabilization ritual using the great crystal at the heart of Lumina." "But," she hesitated, her galaxy spiral eyes meeting his, "it would create a permanent link between us. Our energy patterns would be forever synchronized." The implications hung in the air between them. What had begun as a chance encounter had evolved into something neither could have anticipated, a bond that transcended the physical limitations of their respective species. "Would that be so terrible?" Marcus asked quietly. Vila's smile illuminated her face. "No, not terrible at all." Elder Thrym approached them, looking almost comically small next to Vila's transformed state. "The Council has reached a decision," he announced. "We will permit the stabilization ritual, but there are conditions." "What conditions?" Marcus asked. "First, knowledge of our existence must be carefully managed. We are not ready for full disclosure to all humans." Marcus nodded. This was reasonable, though it would require careful negotiation with his superiors. "Second," the elder continued, "you will serve as our ambassador to your people, Vila. Your transformed state makes you uniquely qualified to bridge our worlds." Vila looked surprised but nodded her acceptance. "And finally," Elder Thrym concluded, looking directly at Marcus, "you must understand that the bond created by the stabilization ritual cannot be broken. Your life energies will be intertwined with Vila's. If you proceed, You commit to protecting our people's interests alongside humanity's. I understand, Marcus said solemnly. And I accept. The journey to the Great Crystal took them deep beneath Crystal Haven, through ancient passages carved with the history of the Lumini in crystalline pictographs. Vila translated as they walked, telling Marcus the story of her people's evolution alongside the crystal entities native to Lumina. We were not always small, she explained. Our ancestors chose this form to better commune with the crystal consciousness. Size was sacrificed for deeper connection with Lumina's energy network. And now you're reversing that choice, Marcus observed. Vila shook her head, not reversing, evolving. The record suggests the resonance transformation represents the next step in our development. The ability to shift between forms as needed, to truly walk in both worlds. The great crystal chamber took Marcus's breath away. A vast cavern opened before them, dominated by a crystal formation the size of a small building. Unlike the blue-purple hues of the forest crystals, this one pulsed with every color imaginable, creating patterns too complex for the human eye to fully comprehend. It's alive, Marcus whispered, sensing the consciousness within the crystal structure. In a way, Vila agreed. It's the central node of Lumina's crystal network, the first formation from which all others grew. The ritual itself was surprisingly simple. Marcus and Vila stood before the great crystal, their hands joined as Elder Thrym, and the council chanted in the ancient Lumini tongue. The crystal responded, its colors intensifying as energy flowed around and through the connected pair. Marcus felt the now familiar sensation of crystal energy coursing through his nervous system, but this time there was something more. A sense of Vila's consciousness brushing against his own, not controlling but connecting, creating a bridge between their minds. I can feel you, her thoughts came to him, clear as spoken words. And I you, he responded in kind, marveling at the ease of this mental communication. The crystal's energy peaked, enveloping them in a cocoon of light that separated them from the watching council. Within this private space of energy, their connection deepened, memories and emotions flowing freely between them. Marcus's wonder when he first discovered the bioluminescent forest, Vila's childhood fears of giant aliens, their shared excitement as they worked together against the shadow stalkers. When the light finally faded, Vila stood before him, stable in her human-sized form. The flickering had ceased, the transformation complete. It worked, she breathed, examining her stabilized form. Elder Thrym approached, his expression solemn but satisfied. The great crystal has accepted your bond. Vila, you may now shift between forms at will, though doing so will require concentration and energy. As if testing this, Vila closed her eyes in concentration. Her form shimmered, shrinking down to her natural Lumini size, before expanding again to stand eye to eye with Marcus. Remarkable, Marcus said. This is only the beginning, Elder Thrym told them. The stabilization ritual has done more than secure Vila's transformation. It has opened a path between our peoples that cannot be closed. In the days that followed, Marcus faced the delicate task of explaining his discovery to the research station leadership. As expected, the revelation of an intelligent species on Lumina created a sensation, but Vila's ability to appear in human size helped ease the initial shock and facilitate communication. A formal first contact protocol was established, with Marcus and Vila serving as the primary intermediaries between humans and Lumini. The research station's mission was reconfigured, with new emphasis on cultural exchange and environmental preservation, rather than resource exploitation. Did you ever imagine this outcome when you found me tangled in those roots? Vila asked Marcus one evening as they stood on an observation platform overlooking the luminescent forest. Never, he admitted. I thought I might discover new plant species, not change the course of interspecies relations. Vila shifted sizes, shrinking down to perch on his shoulder, a position they both found comforting despite her ability to maintain human size indefinitely now. Our people have lived in fear of giants for generations, she said, and humans have searched the stars for intelligent life. Yet when we found each other, It wasn't fear or scientific curiosity that built the bridge between us. What was it then? Marcus asked, though the answer resonated through their shared connection. Understanding, Vila said simply. The willingness to see beyond appearance, beyond size, to the person within. As night fell fully on Lumina, the bioluminescent forest came alive with light, mirroring the stars above. Human and Lumini, giant and tiny, gazed out at this shared beauty, their unlikely friendship having opened a door that would forever change both their worlds.